Lesson 6 in the ongoing curriculum, Fundamentals of Freedom. Brought to you by the World Freeman Society, and this lesson is brought to you by freekeen.com, and we'll be taking a little boo at them later, but if you want to check it out, it's freekeen. There's a whole mess of these in that. So freekeen.com is our sponsor. We'll be having a little chat with them later. We're going to be talking about your sin. Now, as things are supposed to work, we know that the government agents and the government bureaucrats are supposed to be public servants. So we'll put them right here. Now, they're supposed to be public servants, and that means we should be up here with the public as the master. And they're supposed to serve us. Now, why is it, however, that the situation that we're dealing with is so far different than that? They act like they're not our servants, but like they're our masters. Now, what's happened? What if the public servants, in order to become a public servant, you had to be an employee of the federal government? Now, what if these employees figured out a way whereby their masters would be tricked into also becoming employees of the federal government, and therefore subject to the rules which would normally only be applicable to a public servant? Now, how would they do that? With that right there. Now, your social insurance number, or in the States you would call it the Social Security number. What exactly is it? Let's examine that. Now, it is my contention that your social insurance number identifies you as an employee of the federal government. And this is what I see which establishes that. First of all, where do you have to go to get your social insurance number? You go to HRC. And what's that called? Human Resources Canada. Now, look at the private side of things. Other corporations, they have human resources departments. For what? Always for their employees. Believe it or not, Human Resources Canada is the arm of the corporation which is presently governing Canada, and which gets you to be legally their employee by virtue of the fact that you have submitted an application for a social insurance number. Now, the other thing I found is if you call these people up and you tell them, listen, I've been told that I need a federal employee identification number. You know what they'll tell you? That your federal employee identification number is your SIN. According to HRC, your SIN is a number that they use to identify you as a federal employee. Now, what are some of the things you get with your SIN? One, Canada Pension Plan. But what's a pension? And who pays into a pension? I remember reading a court thing, and I know I have to do better with my citations. But the courts rule that payment into a pension plan is in fact evidence that you are an employee of the company whose plan you're paying into. Now, this identifies it as a pension, this identifies it as a plan, this identifies the company. Canada Pension Plan. You're paying into a corporation's pension, which they have for their employees and only their employees. Now, the social insurance number also means that you will end up having an account with CRA. your account number is equal to your SIN. And if you don't have a SIN, you don't have an account number. Now, the reason you would have an account number is very simple. Remember, why did everyone get their SIN? Because they were told they needed it to work legally in Canada. But what is the Canada they're referring to? Here we have Canada Pension Plan. We know that it refers to employees and corporations. The Canada that you are working in legally, if you are operating under a SIN, is that. Canada, all capitalized. Now, what you're doing, you've seen organizations where it's a temporary workforce, right? You go there early in the morning and you end up waiting there for a bit. You might have your work boots and then they call you and you go work for this corporation. Now, when you go working for that corporation, you are in fact acting as an agent for that temp agency. And that is why they are you're not actually working for the company that you go to their job site. You're working for the guy whose office you were sitting in, and the guys at the job site called them and hired one of their temporary agents. The exact same thing happens when you apply for a job and you use your social insurance number. You are not operating under what would be called a contract for hire, but you are operating under a contract for service. You're acting as an agent for the federal government, and you are providing services as that agent. That's why you have to have an account, and they get to take some of your money, just like a temporary job agency would. They used to call, the other thing you should look at, remember when it was called unemployment insurance? Hey, UI, collecting UI? But then they changed it. UI was changed to EI. It's employment insurance. Why? Because their little scheme means that you are always employed as a federal government employee. That's why they changed it from unemployment insurance to employment insurance. They're ensuring that you're always employed. Now, as we know, if you're an employee of a corporation, you're going to have rules that you have to follow, which if the corporation is hired to provide service, say, to be a public servant, you're going to have rules which the public will not have. You're the public servant, you're bound by a certain body of words, and other people would not be. And it's easy to see where you are bound and where you are not. And we'll get to that in maybe later in this lesson. This lesson is also brought to you by the Department of Homeland Security, and they have asked me to bring for you this message. This is for immediate release. It has been confirmed that Al-Qaeda, even though living in the mountains of Afghanistan and hunted by the most technologically and morally superior military force the world has ever known, has managed to do what Western scientists have been trying to do for many years, and that is genetically splice different animals together for the purpose of combat, leading to world domination. You are therefore hereby commanded to increase your level of fear, distrust of strangers, and acceptance of government control to the highest possible level. Using a high school level basic chemistry set smuggled in from Pakistan, ironically provided by impoverished Pakistani students by the American Peace Corps, a coffee grinder from those French bastards, an easy bake oven stolen from our patriotic and recently absolved friends at Hasbro, extensive stockpiles of yellow cake uranium, and a seemingly limitless supply of death-to-freedominium, a previously unknown compound. They have managed to mutate one of the most terrifying of all creature combinations, one which our scientists were too responsible to even try to create, because we are beneficent and good. You are therefore commanded to increase your level of anger at the unknown, hatred for those who are different, and prepare to kill those who do not also blindly follow orders. As Stephen Colbert can attest, the bear is one of the most dangerous and untrustworthy of animals, weighing up to 3,000 pounds and with claws like scythes and fangs like daggers. Our enemies have spliced the genes of one such creature with the one animal which was guaranteed to affect our hearts, the eagle. Yes, our enemies have created an army of beargles. These unnatural beasts were created with the cells from the tortured paws of ex-Soviet circus bears and precious genetic material stolen from the egg of an endangered American freedom eagle. Not content with this abomination, the Iranian-controlled Somalian scientists are in the process of equipping them with opposable thumbs and training them to use Chinese automatic weapons and Iraqi insurgent-inspired improvised explosive rocket launchers, and to engage in silent, deadly airborne attacks by laying eggs laced with weaponized H1B1 avian bear flu virus while flying unseen above the clouds. They have the eyesight of an eagle, the keen hearing of a grizzly bear, and the brutes can smell fear at a distance of 23.5 kilometers. They have huge claws and fangs, a deep hatred of our freedoms, and are capable of flying very long distances. You are therefore commanded to throw all your weapons out into your yard and stay indoors, and to watch CNN and Fox News 24 hours a day, until FEMA and Homeland Security have managed to contain this situation. You are advised to draw your curtains and blinds and ignore any screams you hear outside your doors. They are just the beargles being dealt with, and not security forces taking away those who did not throw their weapons into the yards. If you do see our Homeland Security forces taking away people and not beargles, please rest assured that they were successfully and positively identified as beargle supporters and sympathizers. Thank you for your time. Please go back to watching TV so we can make you feel scared and then safe again. This has been a public service message for Homeland Security from the World Freeman Society. Now, one of the arguments that a lot of people have is, well, if you don't have a sin, if you abandon your sin, you're not paying income tax, what about the roads, what about the sidewalks? The fact is, however, these things existed before a sin, and it's not required in order for you to access those. The things, the benefits that you get with a sin, or what they call a benefit, welfare, employment insurance, Canada pension plan, you'll have an account with the Canada Revenue Agency, and we all know how much fun they are to deal with, and you'll have access to, you can get a government job. These are the benefits. Roads and sidewalks, healthcare, education, fire and police, having a bank account, none of these things are required, or none of these things require having a sin. All of these existed prior to having a social insurance number. And, as we'll see later, there are in fact ways where you do pull your weight with these. Now, some people will argue, oh, if you abandon your sin, you're not pulling your weight. But if you abandon your sin, you're not a burden, you're not collecting welfare, you're not collecting EI, you're not asking to someone for a Canada pension plan, you're not burdening the taxpayer by being one. Because if you're a taxpayer, they need government agents and CRA to do this job. But if you withdraw and you don't have an account with them, and enough people do that, why, they save a lot of money by being able to shrink the size of CRA. And, well, if you want, you know, more freedom and abundance, maybe living your life where you're not you know, doing a government job. If we want less government, we need less people doing government jobs. So all in all, abandoning your sin means you're not collecting any of these, so you're not a burden. They can't claim you're a welfare bum or you're on EI. They can't label any of these because you're merely being personally responsible for all of these. And yet, at the same time, you can also claim and use the roads, sidewalks, healthcare, education, fire, police, and bank accounts because those are paid for in far different ways. Social insurance number pays for this. If you're willing to say no to this, you can get rid of your social insurance number and you can still access this. And if anyone tries saying because you don't have a social insurance number, you're a burden on the roads, the healthcare, the education, the fire, police, or, you know, the social network itself, tell them to go take a hike. You're less of a burden because you're not seeking any of these. And because you're not seeking any of these, the bureaucracy, the growing parasitic bureaucracy, we can shrink that because you're being responsible for yourself. And you're making a community within which you can be responsible for others within the capacity that you've been blessed with. So if people try telling you you need a sin in order to pay for the roads and the healthcare, they're full of shit. You need it for welfare. Tell them, yeah, I don't need your welfare. They don't like it. A lot of people who will support the idea of a sin without ever even looking at the concept of how it creates the obligations within this, without here, and without ever realizing that that sin makes you a government employee, they will be the most vocal ones to defend it and to lambaste you for not having one. Now, they'll say it's obligatory, but how do you get one? You have to apply. You have to submit. You have to apply. We would have such a good country if we had never been tricked into submitting and applying to our public servants. We'd be a nation of masters instead of sheep. Ninnies. We're a bunch of fucking ninnies to a large degree. Now, we just saw what the benefits are when you have your sin. Now, what would the benefits be of not having a sin? Of repenting? First of all, breaking the rules. And because you don't have an account with CRA, you're no longer liable to income tax. Now, there's another benefit, and that is no government job. Which is really a good thing, you know, if you want to develop your spirit and your growth. All of these, roads, sidewalks, healthcare, education, fire, police, bank account, these are rights. And they have nothing to do with you submitting an application for a sin and saying, yes, take care of me, I'll wear your diaper, and I want access to your welfare fund. That's what growing up means. You get to that place, the rules for those employees, for those people who need that nanny support, no longer apply to you. And that's really fair, isn't it? I mean, think about it. It's law. I'm willing to bet CRA agents are not liking this lesson too much. Hi. Okay, in this lesson, since it's the new year, I'm going to give you just light assignments. Bear in mind you should be doing LSATs on a daily basis. You should be doing your homework. The deconstruction or the definitions, looking at the assumptions and implications of 50 words, you should be doing all of these. Now this time what I want you to do for this lesson, develop some due diligence. The information I've just given you I believe very firmly, and I'm pretty sure I can prove it and establish it, but just because I can do it doesn't mean you can. So you have to do your due diligence. Make some phone calls to HRC, Human Resources Canada, and question them concerning those points that I've previously raised. Write them an email. Your goal is to get either confirmation or denial of the information you've been presented today. If they refuse to confirm or deny and they start giving you a runaround, then that is clearly not confirmation, and generally, or not a denial. People who deceive you won't confirm their deception, they just give you a runaround. And so if you get that runaround, if they don't come flat out and tell you one way or another, then it's pretty safe to assume that, well, it's never safe to assume anything. It's logical to infer that the reason they would be giving you that runaround is because they cannot deny it. And if they cannot deny it, they simply don't want to confirm it. So do that. Also, class, your emails, for those of you who have been kind enough to make donations through PayPal, your emails have been sent to my class helpers, Mike Friesen. He will be contacting all of you and asking you if you want to be part of the class mailing list. I strongly suggest that you accept the offer and become part of the class, and do the assignments and keep records of it, specifically videotape records of you fulfilling your assignments will prove to be very, very valuable. So do that. Remember, as always, have fun.
Looking good, standing there all made of wood. Oh, let me pick you up and play a tune. You know how I love you twice as much. You're always there when I call. No complications, you're a doll. Oh, let me pick you up and play a tune. Well, you know how I love you twice as much. Your eyes gray, sounds comes out of you, I'm in a dream. Oh, let me pick you up and play a tune. Well, you know how I love you twice as much. Twice as mine, twice as mine.